Of course, we talked a lot about you not being there because, we could. You weren't there. There was nothing you could do about it.
But, were you impressed by his depth of knowledge?
Yeah, I am. I sound like some sort of slightly tiresome oaf. I'm impressed by a lot of people's depth of knowledge, and it's where his particular bent is. So his bent is on, it seems to me, and I don't want to put words in his mouth because he's not here, although it's always good fun to do that, isn't it, when people are not around. But he's obviously, it seems to me, one of the key parts is he's focused on pragmatic actions in real live court situations, which is one particular way, and it's a pretty important way of dealing with all this kind of stuff. So he's got kind of first-hand real-life experience of dealing with these individuals who are involved in this malarkey face-to-face, and I think that that's vital. So he's right up for that. It seems to suit his personality type. Not that I'm a psychoanalyst, but it does, absolutely, and I think he's a jolly good fellow, and of course, inadvertently, I guess, that makes you and me, kind of part of his merry men.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
And I'm quite glad to be.
We need somebody leading the charge. And also, what I've noticed? People, although they don't necessarily know politics or law or economics, everyone has a respect for the law. They want to know what the law is,
Yeah.
And I think Robin Hood has kind of like realised that that's what the people need and has taken up the mantle and gone, right, this is what people need to know. I will learn it all from somewhere. And literally the last few years have been a miraculous turnaround from somebody that literally knew nothing when I first introduced myself to him to now knowing everything that he does has been a phenomenal journey to witness, on my behalf, because I was just like, well, it is good to know the law, but the fact is, the law and politics can all be changed and influenced with economics. As in what you fix the money, you fix everything. But yeah. I've just found that I don't know what it is. People just don't really get money, even though they've used it their entire life. Even when I explain it to them.
Well, you're training me well. Even though they're using currency their entire life, in other words, we could actually make an excuse for them and say, how could they possibly know about money when they've never actually ever had any? Yeah. Which is true. Of course, we're being clever dicks by saying that kind of stuff. But I think that there's two or three things that are pivotal. I've always focused on the monetary thing, because that was my first bash into this world 30 years back, which is ridiculous. Right. So the money has always been right there going, I've always, thought if you do not fix the money or the currency system and get us back onto something right and sound and proper, and that's a big ask, because it's more than just who's issuing it and all that. It's a massive sort of thing. You're not going to fix anything else on the to-do list. So I've always had it at the top. And the reason being that once they got in charge of that situation back in, well, it was a gradual process, but I guess it got sanctified in 1694 when they formed the Bank of England over here. But once as they've extended their power through that, the first thing that goes is the courts.
Yes.
Because they buy them up. Yeah. So how did they get hold of the courts? Through the control of currency systems. And so you go, okay, so that's the line. Now, and I think all sorts of approaches are merited because none of us really know exactly what it's going to take. But I think everybody needs to find the bit of the weakness in the system that's right near them that they recognize and start hacking at it. Because that's the best we can do. It's almost as if maybe an uncoordinated plan might be the very way to do it. Like I said before, it's a bit like we are supposed to be like damp springing up in a building. They got rid of this bit yesterday, but there's more of it cropping up everywhere. You go bing, bing, bing. Yeah, where it's all over the place. And so there's no one central point that they can go to. But yes. I think that the law and currency systems are thoroughly intertwined. A bit like good cop, bad cop, but actually nothing like that, really. It's bad cop, really. Yeah. And that's how it works. It is. Religion, of course, they've subsumed, generally over the last couple of 100 years and turned it into, instead of it being the defender of the peasants, it's now inadvertently, whether it knows it or not, just a wolf in sheep's clothing, and all that kind of stuff. So you can't go there, even though there's no point, because even though they've got all the answers in their book, they don't read it. They read something else. I've no idea, so it's a bit of a it's everything. I mean, the bottom line is, what's up? Everything's up. Everything, and it's because of this currency virus, really, more than anything else.
Yeah. And you know what I was thinking also? In terms of the education and knowledge that this lot have got, that they hide from us, because I noticed earlier on today, Substack are now wanting digital ID from you in order to message other users of Substack. So,
of course, for your safety, of course. It's got to be safe.
So now we know that they're bought and paid for. And then obviously, people in their organisation, the owners obviously also own and control OnlyFans as well. And they're all extremely run digital platforms. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix. We know who we're talking about. They have got the ability and the wherewithal and the knowledge to create these huge platforms that obviously don't even go bust, because they've always got help, financial help, from the central banks, who can print currency from nothing, so that they can't go bust. So
I know. Yeah. I mean, that observation, Gary, is a really valid one. It's one of the very first things that sort of hit me between the eyes many, many years ago. I thought, what is the point of trying to establish a business? I couldn't see a point in it. Now, that's a bit asinine in a way, because if you need something meaningful to do with your life, and people should and do and will continue to set up businesses. However, when you step back and look at the context for the entire game, you realize that you're on a hiding to nothing. Because the simple reason is they go, oh, yeah, they're really well organised. Yeah, they're bloody well organised, all right, mate. They get paid out first from the Federal Reserve because their mates run it. Let's see you cock it up with $4 billion in your pocket. I mean, you've got to be an absolute king-sized arsehole to do that. And apart from which, they're sending all these advisors. Jeff Bezos built Amazon. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course he did. He's a genius. He builds rockets and everything. It's complete joke. And what they do is they always put an individual out there that everybody's got to hero worship or hate, or a bit of this and a bit of that. Bill Gates built Microsoft, did he? Really?
Again, the official story is that he effectively sort of like stole the Windows program off of Apple, but then did Apple create that program? Or was it, again, just an elaborate story to feed to the masses,
Yeah, well, I think most of that sort of the interface that we all love and enjoy these days on our desktops, that's a development from Rank Xerox, isn't it? They started looking at things like that, I think, in the 40s and 50s, and that technology came over, all that kind of stuff. I mean, there is a great similarity between desktops and slot machines. Look at all those lights. All this kind of stuff. But I mean, there's loads of stuff. I remember using an operating system when Jobs first, and I had a real soft spot for Apple in their first iteration. It was a fantastic bit of kit because people were using IBM PCs in this office environment that I was working in the 80s, and they were intriguing because, the mere fact that you could actually do a bit of word processing was actually quite exciting, particularly when you've been pounding away on a Remington typewriter in your bedroom as a teenager. It's you build up all sorts of messages and stuff like that. It was quite a thing. But I think the key thing was that where was I? Something just came up on my screen and distracted me. Oh yeah, he leaves Apple, doesn't he? So he leaves Apple, and nobody knows much about that. But what he did was he went off and he built a Unix operating system called Next Step, which you may never have heard of, right? And Next Step was stunningly good. It was amazing. It was really, really good. And when I worked in this exciting place in the 90s called the Association of Librarians, ASLib for short, it's probably still there. I didn't realize how meaningful it is, really, because what we're really talking about is about libraries of knowledge, hidden libraries of knowledge. Who gets access to it? It's all about libraries, really. So who's got the database now? That's the new word for it. But who's got access to that key bit of knowledge which would help the peasants more, and therefore we've got to make sure they don't get it. Anyway, when I was working there, I was working with a lady called Jackie. And she shuffled off this model coil, I think, last year. She was a sort of quite a pivotal figure for me in my 20s and 30s. She was great gal and very into technology. One of those, very much into it. And she championed getting hold of this next step system, which just looked stunning. I mean, graphically, it made Windows at the time, because Windows came out about 94, didn't it, or something? Early 90s? I can't remember. I wouldn't even use it, really. So I went from Apple Macs to Next Step, and I only got onto Windows about 2005. I didn't bother with it. And then I spent a lot of time trying to use Linux. And if Linux had a bit more stuff... Anyway, this has gone a bit too techie. But Jobs, I think, did some great stuff. But he's dead. He could have been, diseased to death. I just don't know. I really don't know. They often, as well, in all of these spaces, they'll have at least two major players so that there's an adversarial story to tell in the press. One's the good guy and one's slightly the bad guy, and Gates was always the bad guy because he's just a very strange individual. It's impossible to warm to him when you hear the sound of his voice. I'm quite serious. His voice is not right. He's not in his body. He's somewhere floating around in his head all the time, he's a very odd individual. And so there we go. And Microsoft's business practices are dubious at best and downright thieving at worst, I would suggest.
Well, what
but
about
there you go.
Apple?
But that's now under their new command, isn't it? So, they've all been subsumed by C.I.A. spook agencies or whatever. They don't get to do stuff without that. So Linux has been like the last bastion of it. Some people say, that's succumbed now. I don't see how it can if it's open source. But you got to watch them. The thing is, if we don't use these tools, they wither and die, and then you end up having to use what's left over, and it's nearly always the stuff that the money boys have created, because they can just keep absorbing all sorts of things by just ploughing money at it.
Not money, though, is it? Currency.
Well, currency, absolutely. And that's the unfair advantage that they have, which is never spoken about. You just get all these textbooks of this business genius. Yeah, I bet he is. Yeah, right. They are brilliant guys. I accept that, but they don't tell you that they're playing on a bent table, and that bent table is going to do you in, and the dice are going to roll quite favourably for them at certain times because they've got so many other partners involved who can't have it not fail. Like the banks are too big to fail.
Yeah.
Well, the banks are a walking failure. They're a 24/7 failure all the time.
Well, again, if ever a bank fails, well, who is it that steps in to bail them out? An insurance company. It wasn't even a bank that they bailed out in 2008. It was AIG Insurance, because it was the insurance company that kept the bank afloat. Nobody can let the bank go bust. Poor banks, it's not their fault. They had to be helped out by the insurance company.
Yeah.
Literally everything that this lot have done, they've been covering their tracks for thousands of years. Literally thousands of years, which is why their lies are so good. But it's also why they never ever thought we would ever figure it out.
The thing, you're right. The thing is whether a substantial minority can figure it out and act on it. That's the challenge, isn't it? It seems to me. I've read tons of economics books, not economics, but banking books, the history of banking. Really, if anybody looks at my bookshelf, they go, "What? This?" I'm going, "Yeah, it's amazing." I'm sort of amazed by it, right?
Did you ever learn what I was able to teach you about the difference between money and currency from all those books?
Yeah, I did know it. I've just let you hog it all. Yeah, I knew all that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of reference when I'm talking to the layman. I'm not trying to sort of big myself up. I've sort of forgotten more than I actually read, if you know what I mean. There's some amazing stuff back there. I've got loads of it. And in fact, in tidying up all my drives, I'm sort of thinking, I might read some of it again. There was a guy called Alexander Del Mar, right, of the Tribe, right, okay, who wrote honestly and brilliantly about the sheer depredations of the banking system. It's quite brilliant work, really tremendous stuff. And he hovered between New York, between Wall Street and London in the 1800s. And he wrote, they're copious volumes, they're huge, and they're a little dry in parts. Some of the synthesized and summarized versions are actually very, very good. But he points it all out. There's a whole book, what's he called now? It's about the manipulation of all the individuals that formed the Bank of England using some tart. I've forgotten her name now. Anyway, she slept with most of them so that they all ended up sort of acquiescing to the demands of this cabal. This is in London, the 1600s and all this kind of stuff.
And was that the scandal? Was that What the
May well have been. I've forgotten her name.
Oh
I've
my
forgotten
goodness!
her name.
I know, yeah, didn't they?
There's
Make a
paintings
movie?
of her. She was a high society bint, and she's very bright and looks quite pretty, given the state of play for the day. I assume it's difficult to know, isn't it?
Didn't they make a movie about
yeah.
it called Scandal?
Oh no, that's a recent one. That you're talking about the Profumo affair
That's
in the 60s.
the one. All right, so it wasn't
I'm talking about the 1660s.
Oh,
no, not
right,
that old, but
right.
yeah. So I'm talking a bit older, but yeah, it's similar dynamic. I mean, and they're applying it now. It never stops. And I think, it's interesting as well. You mentioning the long-term capital management thing and all that kind of doofus in 2008. When you think about it, bailing the banks out is a bit like your drug pusher coming to you and saying, "I'm broke. Can you lend me some money so I can supply you more drugs at a profit to me?" Of course.
Yeah.
That's what it's like. It's absolutely mad. But it's dressed up as, oh no, the government will bail them out. What does that mean? Where's the government get its currency from? You can't tell. I mean, it's so labyrinthine and complex by design. Well, if you want to spend 15 years of your life sitting in a library, you can do. But by the time you come out, the whole world will have moved on and nobody will understand what you're saying anyway.
Well, also,
So-
a lot of this stuff that in these books, a lot of these books are absolute bullshit. Even Karl Marx admitted himself before he wrote one of his books. Literally, the amount of effort these people go to in order to deceive others, they're chuffed to bits about it. They're, oh yeah, I've written all this bullshit. I can't remember what the book was that he was referring to, but it was one of his, most
Das
famous
Kapital, it must have
books.
been. It's all garbage. I mean, with Marx, of course, first of all, his tombstone's in Highgate Cemetery in North London. Secondly, he wrote all that junk while sitting on his arse in the British Lending Library for 20 years or something. Who paid for his sandwiches? That's what you find out. Who paid for his... And it's the usual people. And it's just a complete ideology. And all communism is in that form is supra-capitalism. It's just a way of extending the power of I'm just using the word capitalist. They're not even that really. But the super bankers, it's their ideal thing, which is what they're seeking to initiate with this global ID globalist thing, which is just communism for the world, whether you like it or not. And, it's impossible to get through to their acolytes because their acolytes do not realize, I think, or even if they do, they don't care anymore, that they've been effectively inducted into a satanic cult. It's satanic in the sense of opposing the natural order of life. That's what it does. It opposes it. And it says, we are clever men and we can come up with a better system. To which we reply, but you don't even know how your arse works. They don't. I mean, but they're very clever. You've got to give them that. It's really
but
they just are.
It's scary, scary, clever. I mean, literally, you're talking about the creme de la creme of criminal masterminds.
Well, you are. Yeah, you are.
Literally the only downside that they've got is that they're lying about everything. Literally, and that's it. And like anything, if you want to uncover a lie, all you've got to do is continue to ask a line of questions. Because eventually their story will break down because it's a lie and doesn't make sense. So therefore you will always know somebody who's lying because they're the ones who will change their story. Because they have to change it. Because if you keep digging at the lie they're telling you, eventually it won't make sense. Well, how can that be? Because because that clearly didn't happen. And then they come out with another lie. Literally just lie. And if it weren't for their pathetic lies, I mean, I actually probably reckon they could maybe, I don't know if they'd want to achieve what they want to do, but the fact is they want rid of everybody. So, I mean, how good would life be if they actually empowered everyone? But they just don't want that. They literally,
No.
the most racist, ethnically cleansing wannabes, that the world has ever known.
Well, actually, I mean, I think the sad thing is that most of the world doesn't know that, and they're not likely to, are they? Because I've just been out for my haircut today, like I have it once a year. I don't. I get my hair cut every 3 months. Anyway, there's a guy I know locally, used to work in a local barber, and he now sort of cuts hair from his flat, and I got a good guy. Very interesting having a chat with him because he's about, I don't know, mid-30s or something like that. And he's been running... He's had to pack a job in that where he's got a couple of jobs, to keep ticking it over. But the crew that were working there, he said, they're all woke. He said it's just remarkable, how compliant they are and that you can't actually affect them. I said, I know. It is. My goodness, and I was banging on with him again about this thing called the question mark, which I still think is the killer app. Or if you don't use the question, you're not going to get very far anywhere. I mean, at all, it seems to me. And I was thinking, as I said, the question mark is the key. And then if you actually turn a question mark on its side, it's like a key, isn't it, that goes into a lock. You've got the little curly bit at the top like that. I was getting all carried away with myself, Gary. But they don't ask questions. They do, because they've gone to a so-called education system that discourages that and embarrasses you for asking them, and there is no such thing as a dumb question. The first one might be pretty simplistic, but if you are encouraged to keep asking questions, the first one begats the second one, which will be slightly better and more on target, begats the third, and on it goes. After 5,000 of them, you're beginning to get somewhere. You go, oh, now, right. And the reason they don't want that is that's an individual that's actually doing their own thinking. That's not going to help. They don't want thinking people. They want obedient people. And what they've done with the obedient people is they've led them to believe that they're highly intelligent. And in many ways they are. But it's within a really confined context. They're only intelligent so long as the system can make use of it. Yes. So, they've been bred for a purpose, like orcs. And their life's pretty good, and those people become unreachable. We were talking about, I said, anybody that's relatively, like his brother's doing quite well, but he's impervious to this guy's line of questioning. And I said, well, this is quite common, it's quite typical sort of psychological condition, particularly amongst people who are termed successful in the game. They're so successful in it, they don't even view it as a game because they're good at it. And so how are you going to take an individual who's good at the game and say, by the way, I think this game that you're playing is absolute crap. And the fact that you're good at it is worth less than nothing. That just doesn't go down very well. It doesn't.
Well, they're only going to realise it's like, what was it Mark Twain said? It's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them that they've actually been fooled. And unfortunately, these people, who don't realise that they've been fooled, they are only going to realise it when one day they wake up and the bank has converted all their funds to a CBDC that is on a timer that has to be spent, or else it will just simply be deleted. Or they can't spend their funds anymore on their favourite bit of steak and all this kind of stuff. Even though, did you hear recently they've actually just admitted that the climate scam was a hoax that they created. Can you believe it? They've actually admitted it now officially and broadcast it. I mean, how crazy is that? So that means they can't go on about this red meat thing anymore. Oh, it's the cows, farting and methane and all this kind of rubbish. That's massive for farmers. So that means all wind turbines, so all this solar power energy crap. It's all bollocks. Not needed at all.
But people like you and I knew that anyway. I think. It's not that it's a bad thing, but if you think, as you were saying that, a thought occurred to me, which was, if you look at the amount of coverage in terms of minutes given and to scale of audience, so you come up with a sort of viewing hour, which is one individual absorbing the established live, which they've been pumping out for 20 years now, or even longer, I don't know. You need to add them all up and go, oh yeah, they've had 100 billion hours of exposure, then we need 100 billion hours of exposure of this idea. So the fact that you've found it, right, is indicative of your character, which is good, right? And we run in circles, don't we, where people are looking out for these things and we confirm it. But the guy in the street's not going to know. It might take 10 years before that information actually lands in a pub. It might be a lot quicker. I don't know. But it's the scale of the communication. It's like there's an aspect of the communication war which is like World War One. It's just a war of attrition. We can send 50 shells per second and they can do 60. We're going to lose. And it's, of course, we are massively more outgunned than that. So it's a kind of a battle that we can't win, not a battle that's conducted in that way. But it's good. Yeah, it's good. I mean, there are lots of things. There was, I think I mentioned a couple of times, there's a guy on, I was listening to, you get a story, you repeat it for 3 or 4 days. It's a very quick one. But I was listening to Mike Graham, I think last Thursday. He had a guy called Jim Dale from up in Lancashire somewhere. And he sounded extremely verbally well disciplined. He came across really rather well for the opening minute or two until you started to listen to the content of what he was talking about, and then it became hilarious because he's an advocate for this man-made climate control. It was absolutely ridiculously stupid, unexamined guff that was coming out of his mouth, which is what comes out of all of their mouths. Like, oh, there's a consensus, he's saying, that he said all the scientists in the world agree that this happened. And going, no, they don't. Where did you? No, they don't. All the scientists that have been paid off to say that they agree with it, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they got paid. Otherwise, their research budget gets cut, and they want to muck about with cumulonimbus clouds or whatever it is. Yeah. So they just go, that's what's happened. Again, the currency comes in and brains go out of the window, and you don't have any truth left. And he was up against a guy called Paul Burgess. And actually, we played a couple of interviews today earlier on FFT. Not that anybody would have known. I just keep throwing things into the hopper. Apparently, the Isle of Man is due to be inundated with wind turbines. And he was over there advising them strongly to not do that for all sorts of reasons. It will destroy their tourist trade. Who wants to go there and see those hideous, stupid pieces of junk that are so inefficient and are there purely to advertise their great ideology? This is why, such... cretinous creatures as Ed Millipede back it. I mean, there's a guy who's practically never done anything in his life, and they're all like that. They're never going to get it because they don't want to do it. They're not fit for purpose, these people. Anyway, we all know that, don't we? But
it's high treason, mate, is what they're doing. They
certainly is.
They're willingly and knowingly deceiving people to purposely destroy the infrastructure of the country.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. It's just that we were able to get away with it prior to internet. And it's taken 20 years for internet knowledge to seep through and to get into a large... And the COVID thing, of course, backfired to some degree with them. Although it doesn't seem to put Tony Blair off, does it? And, we're all going to have digigital ID, and this is a great idea.
Even Tony Blair was the one that was telling Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband to, just give up on their net zero. Said it wasn't required anymore. So even he's changing tack, and if he's changing, tack, I think it's a play, Gary. Yeah.
I think it's a play. I think those were the lines that he got. He's got, right, Tony, what we're going to do is to get some more press coverage. You're going to disagree with Keir Starmer. Sorry, this is the way I see it all the time. I just don't buy anything at all. I heard Mike Graham saying, oh, well, Tony Blair was not a bad prime minister, but also most of the things that we're suffering, he caused those as well. He did some good stuff, but this is really bad stuff. Anyway, he seems to be changing his tune, and I immediately thought, no, he's not. He's just been given some different lines to say.
Yeah.
He sings their tune no matter what. He's just, right, Tony, for 6 months you're going to be talking about this. And what we'll do is we'll big it up and we'll let everybody know as well that your son's going to earn 500 million quid and that you own this company. We're going to do that on purpose. We're going to release that. Don't worry, Keir's not, and then you and Keir can have a pretend argument in public or whatever it is. And everybody will get sucked into that for a bit. But in the background, all the time, the real agenda is being undertaken and executed. So, they're all a waste of space.
Well, also talking about their agenda being executed, I was just, going over the history again, writing reports for, significant people, hopefully, so they get what I'm saying. And I noticed that Executive Order 6102 was issued on the 5th of April, 1933.
Right.
Yeah? And then they had the... one of the world's largest bowel worshipping ceremonies in Soldiers Field on the 3rd of July,
Chicago.
1930. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Have you seen the footage of that?
I have.
It's deranged. It's absolutely. Yeah. It's just. It needs to be. Now, there's a piece of footage that needs to be. You need to give it to Peter. What's his name? Peter Jackson, who did the Lord of the Rings thing. Yeah, Peter, get hold of that. AI it up. Let's get it crystal clear. Slow it down to real speed. Put a soundtrack on it, and let's start playing that on TV. This is what you're dealing with. It's nuts. These people are literally Baal worshippers. That's why the headquarters of the World Bank is in Baal, in Switzerland.
But also the date is significant. So you know how they always use the number 33 as a troll to Christians because they killed Christ when he was 33. So whenever they use throw the number 33 around, it's always because of that. So this Agenda 2030. I actually think the reason they're trying to speed things up and get it ready for 2030 is because they're actually going to remove the velvet glove and reveal their iron fist in 2033. That's when I think they're actually going to try and bring in this CBDC and everything, and literally that'll be it. I think that's the date they're aiming for, 2033.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, we need to get a move on, but I mean, again, what's frustrating but also encouraging at the same time is that literally all we need to do is to get people to hold and purchase BSV. That is it.
Okay, that's a really good point. In fact, after last week's show, I was thinking about that with regard to this law that's in England. So, as I understand it, the one that was passed in 2024, I don't know it in detail. Is it? This is an assumption. Is it correct to say that you cannot buy any digital currency now if you live in England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland?
Correct.
Have they outlawed it?
So
right.
19th of February 2024 is when they brought that in.
Okay, so exchange makers effectively, because everybody's honourable, won't be dealing with anybody that lives in these islands. Is that right? Supposedly.
Well, certainly the cabal owned and controlled exchanges won't be.
Mm-hmm.
But other exchanges who know that it's absolute bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're just ignoring that instruction because the FCA is a private corporation financed by the bank. So again, corporation. It's not even government owned and controlled. It's literally a private for-profit corporation financed by the banks. They've got no authority.
I'm shocked, Gary. Are you sure about that?
I am.
What, really? A for-profit organisation? I've never involved with government.
Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing. That's outrageous. I could possibly be right. Yeah. What does the FCA stand for? Financial something or other?
Conduct Authority.
Conduct. Okay, so it used to be the FSA, which was the Financial Services Authority.
Yeah.
That was the body of numpties that were in charge when I was having lots of fun with the Bank of England, the FSA and the DTI. The DTI has been disbanded. And they probably just, I don't know, they just keep replacing these things. Half of the problem, of course, is that we have to keep paying a little attention to what they're up to. But it gets in the way of actually building and restoring what's taking place. I actually think, though, that it won't be all about these sort of lines of machinery and administration where it comes undone. Our job, I think, part of our job and people like us is to stoke the fires that are beginning to smolder a bit within a lot of people and keep stoking and feeding oxygen in there to feed the flame, because history has a way of throwing up the most bizarre things that no one anticipated, no matter how much AI you've got. Interestingly, with AI, have you heard these reports recently that they're giving demonstrations of AI to university students? They're getting booed.
No.
Loads of them.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You're like, clear off with your bloody AI. I mean, they don't speak like that, but they ought to. I don't know. As I'm assuming in American university campuses and places like this. Why? Because they're all burdened with student debt. And they just think, look, I've been studying for this. You're talking to me about AI. The thing that I've been studying for, I now won't be able to get a job, and I'm burdened with $80,000 of debt or whatever the number is. Yeah. Right? So they're saying, but of course, you see, in a way, again, there's nothing wrong with AI. What's wrong is who gets stewardship / ownership, who has property in it. and the peasants don't. That's the problem. Like, look, even though you and I absolutely agree that the Bank of England is run like a criminal enterprise, because as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly what it is. It's a criminal enterprise because it's fraudulent in that it's basically it says that promises are worth something. Really? Okay, yours. Yeah, and here's a token called a currency note, and you can bang it around as the bearer of it. But it's yours, really, except when push comes to shove and you're in court, we'll take it all off you. Yeah. So it's just a complete scam, right? Yeah. But all those things aside, if you and I and every other man and woman and child, boy and girl, who is English, Scottish, Welsh, and so on, of these islands, owned that bank as a lifetime share at the moment of birth, and we got a divvy, then we'd be able to put pressure on it to get it to behave itself. But because we've been denied through subterfuge and through the perversion of the rich and the high and the mighty through money 700 years ago, or whenever it all started, it goes back thousands of years, this kind of stuff, we're ruled out. And so the guys that run it now, their mindset is that we are plebs. Okay, I'm a pleb. I'm a plebeian. Fine. I'm a peasant. Yep. Cool, I'm a peasant. But this system that they're building is their system for them. And it's not, the lie is, we are going to improve the national economy. What are you talking about? You've never done that. They don't do that. That's not what they do. They just basically make us. The guy that I worked with came out with a great line once. He said, they make us pay for their mistakes. And they are a walking, talking, 24/7 mistake machine. Yeah. As human beings, they're a mistake. They've mistaken everything. Because they've been sucked into this satanic cult. Seriously, we know better than God. Really? And you're supposed to buy, and you can't shake that out of their head. You can forget it. It's never going to happen. We couldn't persuade them that they might have got a bit wrong. Yeah. They'll just use force against you.
Yeah, well
could you just stop doing that for a while?
Do you know when the FCA was created?
This is the latest one. No, early 2000s, was it, or something?
Yeah, but the date. Guess what date of the year? It was in 2013.
Is it another April, is it?
April 1st. April 1st, 2013. Honestly, they are absolutely ripping the piss out of us.
Yeah.
April Fool's.
I guess maybe they do it as well to send a sort of encouragement signal through to the whole crew of acolytes that are in on this nonsense. So they can all they can get together at their clubs and have a little giggle. Oh, look at them, they don't know what's going on. Yeah, great.
Totally.
So this is your idea of a joke, is it? I mean, honestly, they'd be very bad stand-up comedians, wouldn't they?
Well, they love it. They love it, because they all know what it means. They all know what they're doing. They love the audacity that they can get away with it. And also, it's part of their religion. They're just like, look, if we told you this and we made it so obvious what we're doing, but you did nothing about it, well, that's your fault. That's not on us.
Well, it's kind of true, actually. It's kind of true. I think it really, that's that thing that Michael Hoffman talks about with the revelation of the method. I might mention it here before. I mention it loads because I think it's a really key insight. If you're aware that you're being abused or that a crime has taken place and you do nothing about it, you become doubly mind enslaved by the process. That's what happens. So it's not resistance to their ideas, it's the restoration of the ideas that work that is required. Resisting them actually just feeds them more energy. It's a bit like what all these people are talking about, with evil spirits feeding off the louche, the emotional distress of people. It's the same model, isn't it? Yeah, they feed off of our energy when we're in a state of distress. It gives them a kick.
Or wasn't it Edmund Burke who said the only thing that evil needs to prevail is for good men to do nothing?
That's really it. Burke's just right up there. Top 10 greatest people out of these islands ever. He's right in there for me.
Well, I think that
he's brilliant.
This is why they've attacked toxic masculinity. Put female hormones in all the injections. To turn men effeminate, and then the most recent thing is that they found that they had a substance that causes micropenis, in the jibby jabbies. So that's how you can tell if you're if you're female and your partner has suddenly had a shrinking member. Well, it's because if he told you didn't get jabbed, well, he probably has, because the evidence will be there. You'll see it.
Yep. As far as they're concerned, anything goes. They'll do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, they're not lying to us in their own mind. I don't think they are. They don't care. That's just a tactic of war. They don't care about that. They're not morally sort of distressed about the fact that they do this. To them, there is a goal to be achieved, which is the removal of us. That's it.
On God's command.
Yep. Well, I mean, going back to scriptural thing, even though this might sound a bit thin to certain ears, I don't know. This is very tough love sort of stuff, but basically, I think one of the gists of a correct reading of that stuff is this: if you fail to keep the law, I will allow your enemies to kick shit out of you. That's put it in pub language, right?
Yeah.
You will do this because if you don't, right, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And also there's another line in there with regards to our favourite pals, which says they will become thorns in your side and pricks in your eyes. Tell me what's right. Yeah, tell me what's not clear about that. Yeah. Right. And this has been going on for a long time. And I think all of these discussions are still, many of the discussions are still framed wrong. They're framed, I think, by the communicators in them as if we can work things out, it will work. No, there's only one way to do that. The alien cannot live amongst us. That's it.
Yeah. In
my humble opinion. You can forget all the other things are a concomitant of that. Because that has been allowed, people get slowly... We are an extremely forgiving and empathizing sort of people. It's a great quality, but not when you put it at the disposal of people who are beguiling you and deceiving you and intend colossal harm against you. Yeah. It's absolutely, it's like committing racial suicide to do that. But people would rather feel good in the moment than actually think for the future, I think. And it's a common pattern with us as a people, really.
Well,
and it's admirable.
Isn't it?
It's
a tactic
it is.
That they've created. Oh yeah, you need to do good. If you do good, then that good is returned. But then what's their definition of good? You know?
Anything that benefits them.
Yeah,
that's it.
But you know what?
That's it.
I was trying to explain the situation that we're in and how we get out of it to somebody else earlier, and he'd not heard of Rockefeller's secret covenant. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'll dig it up. So I'm just reading here, sort of word for word. In his covenant, it says, "They must never ever find out what we have done. For if they do, we shall have no place to run. For it will be easy to see who we are once the veil has fallen. Our actions shall have revealed who we are, and they will hunt us down. This is the secret covenant by which we shall live the rest of our lives. The covenant must never ever be known to exist, for if it is, the consciousness will spawn, and it will release the fury of the prime creator upon us." So in other words, we can't see who they are. So literally the only way that we're going to see who they are is when we see what they've done and who's done it. And the only way we can see who's done what and who's done it is on the Bitcoin network. Literally everybody has to use the Bitcoin network so the trail of evidence can't be deleted and we can see who did what. That's why they're so scared of it. A transparent, immutable ledger, revealing a trail of evidence through a chain of digital signatures. That's why they're absolutely shitting it. And literally all we've got to do is try to explain this to them. Say, look, all you've got to do is hold BSV and use the network when the time comes, when you've got the ability to do so. Because we can use it for all of our communication requirements, all of our social media requirements, our financial requirements. And with the economically negative system that they've created, which is toxic for everybody apart from themselves, eventually our system, which is economically positive, will suck everything into it because a rising tide lifts all boats. And this will actually happen really quickly. There is price discovery and fear of missing out where everybody jumps into it. I think it will happen a lot faster than a lot of those people who initially listen to me think that it will. That is, that'll take a long time. Well, I'm just like, well, how long did it take for everybody in the world to get a mobile phone? How quickly did the mobile phone market take off? Well, the mobile phone market took off like wildfire because there was a real need for to communicate with people wherever you go. People trying to get hold of you to find out where you are, for your safety and all this kind of stuff. Imagine the mobile phone market on steroids multiplied by like, a million. And this is what Bitcoin is, because now you're not only missing out on a valuable service, you're actually missing out on an economic benefit. So everybody will jump in. Everyone, and when everybody starts and whereas people are like, oh, why would anybody want to buy a coffee with Bitcoin when, the cup of coffee that they bought might be worth $1 million, a few years' time or whatever. Well, it's like this. You will have accrued purchasing power from your Bitcoin that you got from nothing, just because the value has gone up. So therefore, you've actually got more purchasing power that you've not had to work for. So therefore, you're more inclined to spend it. And when you give that to somebody else, you're actually increasing somebody else's purchasing power. And then they're going to do, and then they're all going to, so you grow the economy by distributing the coins yourselves. So therefore, you're actually going to enjoy spending it, and help somebody else benefit, help somebody out, help somebody get out of the toxic economy that they've created.
Yeah.
And in the meantime,
I think,
build a safety network that all of us runs on, where people have now got data integrity, which means people now act in honor and honesty, which is what we want. So, it's financially beneficial. It's personally security more beneficial, because everybody's safe, because you can't crack, hack, or alter, change, or delete information or anything like that. It means the economy can now operate on an honest level, and also people will eventually have what they call sort of more perfect knowledge, because you can then make decisions on data that has got integrity behind it, because it hasn't been tampered with. So it makes the entire world safer, and not only does it make the world safer, you financially benefit from it. So literally, when people realize that, the whole world is going to get sucked in, which is why our farmers and the truthers and people like us who know the problems that we're facing have to be in on this as soon as possible.
Not that we're suggesting that people do undertake criminal activity. Heaven forbid that we would do such a thing. I think, but that doesn't that sort of tail back to that point we were making maybe half an hour ago, that you've got this link between currency mongers and the corruption of the courts. So now what they've done, because of your correctly identified anxiety that they have running through them with regards to the implications of this and the practical aspects of it, they've called upon the law to say you can't do it. And so the challenge there, or an aspect of that, is that command, let's call it that instruction set in their operating system has gone through to all their minions, who are not knowledgeable, we have to assume, about the implications of this, and just enforce it anyway, blindly.
Well, a lot of them anyway.
Yeah, of course they are.
But we've just got to find the good eggs that realise that it's not a law. It's not a law. It doesn't cause any harm, injury, or loss. And all they're trying to do is enforce rules. And the rules themselves are repugnant to the Constitution. So they're actually breaking the law themselves by trying to enforce their own rules.
I think, absolutely.
They're doing that is because if we start using, a true monetary system outside of their fraudulent system, well, people are certain, the veil is going to fall. People are going to start seeing that their system is fraudulent, and they've been asset stripping us for thousands of years.
I mean, I think the benefits of it we can't really fully envisage. I mean, there's one sort of little thought that runs through my head, is that if you actually get money based on data, this commodity established and beginning to run through the commercial life of everybody that starts to use it, and it speeds up, I can see a situation where the acquisition of further purchasing power becomes a less desirable goal in life. Because this is just me. You see, what is it that people really want? They think they might want a lot of purchasing power under the current paradigm. I hate that word, but I used it. But because, rightly, they go, look, I've got these brown envelopes keep coming through the door once a month with bills. If I had more of this currency stuff, I know they don't think like this, but if I had more of it, those bills would be less of a pest in my mind. and absorbing my energy and taking me away from growing rhododendrons or whatever I want to do. But unfortunately, I've got to keep spending time on this crap all the time, right? And when I do, they only use the money to import more aliens into my country. This is insane, of course, but not from the enemy's point of view. Now, I think that I know what I've always been after is a bill-free life, or as near as damn it. In other words, it's not tons of purchasing power I want. It's the absence of demands upon me from entities that I don't want to conduct any interaction with, who've got no right to ask for that. Not that I even believe in rights. I don't even know. I don't believe in rights at all. Because what I think we're talking about is duty to the law, which is a different kettle of fish as far as I'm concerned. I'm quite prepared to be proven wrong at some point. But I think it's duty to the old ways, to the correct ways of human behavior. And that's really what Scripture's all about, is duty to the law. Obey it. If you love me, keep the commandments. Well, we obviously haven't been doing that. But it's not surprising, considering that churches haven't been teaching that for hundreds of years. They've been teaching all sorts of other guff. All sort of la-di-da, Jesus loves everyone and all this kind of stuff. I don't think so, mate.
Well, they're
what's the point?
Woke, aren't they, really?
No, he's been a hippie Jesus. He loves everyone. Hey, man, it's all great, let's just come together and have a party. It's going to be good. Yeah, right. I don't think so. It's not about that at all. And this is why there's some very serious adult conversations that are going on but need to be amplified massively. The thing is, when you amplify them, they come to the ears of the people that you don't want them to come to, and then they start writing, acts and things to actually restrict your ability to speak those ideas. Yeah. And of course, if freedom of speech is worth anything, it is, as Orwell said, to say ththings that people don't want to hear. That's the whole purpose of it. Yeah. It's not to say things they want to hear. You're lovely. I like you. Oh, isn't freedom of speech great? Yeah, but you're an absolute arsehole. Oh, you can't say that. You've upset me. Well, it's called freedom of speech. You associate, don't you, with people that you get on with as best you can, and sometimes it goes pear-shaped. But I think practical step to actually have people own it or get wallets and have this stuff in it and start to have it mobilized, i.e. move around to service transactions and to create honourable, perfect settlements, the exchange of goods and services, is the practical goal at hand. And I think, in a way, given what you were saying as well about them just being acts, this is where Robin Hood and his merry men come in, because their purchase point on us is the courts, which are not courts. And this stuff has to be clearly undermined by us, naturally, in the hearts and minds of our fellow peasants. They've got to go, hey, that's not a court. Just like, I'm off for a beer and that's not a court. It's got to be like that. It's like saying that you're not an officer of anything much. We've got to get, and there's a lot of little details that I've got to get across. That I think there are, and boiling these down into sort of wallop statements is going to be a key part of it. There's certain statements that just hit you. That clip that you sent me of the guy, Frank Reiter, did we talk about it last week? But when he said, I don't want to live in a market, I want to live in a nation. Yes. That was the killer point there. That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I don't want to live in a market, I want to live in a nation. We all do. Yeah.
It might be worth reaching out to him, trying to explain Bitcoin, but as soon as I mentioned it to him, he dismissed me. But we need smart people. Again,
you're a very rude person, Gary.
Well, yeah, there's because he said, you
hey, we're finished.
You cannot.
We're finishing. You can hear the music. See you next week. We've gone now.
This is Mark, the bowler.